I cried. I cried because I would have been ruined.
How did you know he had stories? I said, does it not look like someone that has stories? Why do we do victory story? Why do we do victory story? Psalm 107 verse 2. I like it the day I found it in the NIV version. It says, let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story. It's the popular, let the redeemed of the Lord say so. But in this version, I found it that day, it says, let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story. Those that he has redeemed from the hand of the enemy. I'm like, wow. But why is it important for us to tell our stories? There are lots of people who are passing through things. And at the same time, there are lots of people that are being through things. Now, somebody's issues of today, somebody's problem of today, is someone else's testimony. And this is why we need to share. So that Christians will know that what we're going through right now, what you may be going through right now, is someone else's testimony. And if God has done it for that person, God can do it for you as well.
Absolutely.
Which is why I brought my bros here. Which is why I brought you here.
Okay.
Let me say this. 2 days ago, I met someone, and the person asked me that, how did you know he had stories? I said, does it not look like someone that has stories? I'm like, does it not look like someone that has stories? And then she agreed, okay. Okay. And then she said, don't worry, it's just going to share just few of them. He has many stories.
I do have a lot of stories. You know, life of a Christian basically is it's a journey of faith in God.
Absolutely.
Right. And when you say you're walking in faith in God and you're not tested or tried,
Absolutely.
your faith lacks substance.
Absolutely.
So I do have a lot of stories, but for the benefit of time we have here today, I'll just share a little, and the most seminal ones in my life I will share with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. And just before we move on with the stories, I did a little digging.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do I introduce a man? Man, what I found. No, this is not coming to me as a surprise. I'm not surprised, but I'm like, I can't even pronounce some of these things. But yeah, so today I have with me Mr. Bolaji Ogunleye. He's actually a professional engineer. He's a project manager. He's a data analyst. I mean, bros, just ask me one of these things.
Okay. Anyway, all that, and I've done a lot of work in my life, but all that I count as done, the light of what Christ has done in me. So it is just it's just normal, and for me, I'm a lifelong learner, like I told you, Doctor, some minutes ago.
Yeah.
I like learning and I like expanding my, horizon things, and that's why you see all those letters behind my name,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But like I said, I can't all done
Yeah.
the light of what Christ did.
Have you stopped?
I don't know yet. I don't know yet.
Okay. Yeah, you can go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So again, I'm so happy to be here today, and thank you, Toby, for what you, Desire and Peter, are actually doing on this platform.
Thank you, sir.
It's really, when you called me and said I was going to be part of this this edition, I was like, why me? But like you said, the person you met told you I have lots of stories.
Yeah.
And the journey of my life, I'm not too old, I'm in my 40s.
Yeah.
But at the point in my life, some things happened that actually basically revolutionized my life, essentially. And it has brought me to the place I am here today, and it's still taking me further in God.
Yeah.
And before I go further, I just want to say thanks be unto God, who has given us the opportunity and the privilege to be partakers of His divine nature, and for what He did on Calvary for us. Because without that, we can't be called sons and daughters of the great King. So for that, I'm thankful. And again, it's quite a huge work you and your family are doing, because it is quite pertinent that we share testimonies. People want to hear of what the Lord is doing in the lives of His people. And some people, when they hear the stories, right, they are encouraged, they're inspired,
Absolutely.
they are uplifted, right? The same way we go into the scriptures to read about Abraham, about Noah, all these people actually went before us. The Bible says their stories are an example for us that live in this age,
Exactly.
so that we can draw from them. So the same thing we're doing for people around us that are yet, because I was teaching some teenagers over the weekend,
Okay.
and I said, I don't want to scare you, but in this life, the Bible says you'll have trials and tribulations, but be of good cheer and overcome the world. As a Christian, you will face hardship. You will. So it's not debatable. You will, but
It's not if you will.
no, it's when. It's a time thing.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, it is quite instructive that before such things happen to us, we are pre-informed and also get up for our response. So it's what you're doing. And I thank the Lord for you and family, and I pray that this work would actually be effectual and effectual as the Lord deems it fit.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
When I met Aramide, my wife, I met her when I was in college. I was 20, she was 18, and I fell in love with this young lady, and we had our lives going on for us. Left school, even though I didn't. I come from a very, very home background. My mother, not my parents in this time around. Like, my father left when I was quite young, so my mother was left alone to raise 5 of us. And she did a fine job, I guess.
When is it left?
He walked out of the family.
Oh.
So he married another woman, right?
Oh.
And my mother was left with 5 of us to raise on our own.
Wow.
So it was quite my life growing up wasn't that it was fun, but there was no money. So it was the poverty days, basically. But my mother did a fine job of just trying to raise us in the fear of the Lord. And so essentially I was raised with a Christian background in church. At a very young age, I remember I gave my life to Christ. As a young 10, 11, 12-year-old boy, I was a church boy, going to church, loving the Lord, and stuff like that. And fast forward, when I was 20, I met her that was year 2000. She was 18, I was 20, we keep it going, and years down the line, 7 years after, we got married. So I was 26, maybe 27, she was 24, maybe 25, and we got married. And things were looking very good because God's so good. I got a very good job with one of the oil majors in Nigeria. So I was working as a junior engineer there, electrical engineer, and things were pretty going well. I got married and things were moving smoothly. Along the line, I had broken away, so to speak. Young boy having lots of money in his pockets, pressure from the world, ungodly influence. I had pulled away, so to speak, from the Christian path that I was tutored in. So I kept on going and just living my life as a nominal Christian. Hey, go to church. The rest, just know that go to church, and that's what I used to do. So we had our first child in in 2008. Everything good, life was sweet. There was money to spend, living in a good place. And 2 years down the line, looking forward to having another child, right? Tomiwa, a girl, and this thing with in the African culture, you want a guy, you want a son.
Absolutely.
Right?
You want
That's what I actually wanted,
Yeah.
So I remember that morning in February 1st, 2010. I have a way with dates and numbers, so I will tell you the specific date.
I wish I could do that.
So February 1st, 2010 was actually a Tuesday. I was going to work in the field. I wasn't a field man.
Yeah.
So that morning, even though I was a nominal Christian, but I knew the values of
of course,
speaking to God and
I know
for us.
I know people who are far from the church.
Yeah.
I don't want to use the word far from God. I'm not a judge. Far from the church, but they still know some dates that they must come to church.
Yeah.
Probably on their birthday, December 31, all those kind of things. Yeah.
You know, I was even, I wouldn't say in the scheme of things, I was better than that, but I
Yeah.
knew that my heart wasn't where it should be because
Yeah.
I was so much influenced by what was going around me, the wealth, if I can call it that, because I was a young 20-something-year-old boy and I had money in my pocket, so
Yeah.
I didn't have life worries like because young men of my age bracket then were still hustling.
Yeah.
But God was good to me. I'd gotten a job as a permanent employee of a good company, and money was,
Yeah.
so I had really no worry, so to speak. So I told the Lord, God, I'll be thankful if you give me a son, I will dedicate him to you. So fast forward a few weeks, I already had conceived, she had a baby, and so grateful. And all along, when the baby was in our womb, I tried, basically we don't do sex check.
Yeah.
But I was like, I want to really know what's in there. So I know I remember I did it twice, and this baby growing in our womb would take a position that you would never know the sex. They knew everything. They knew the days it was coming. They knew but the sex they couldn't tell us. So around the day, she's always been this kind of person, churchy girl, So she used to attend the Pregnant Women's Fellowship back in the days in our church, and during one of the Saturday encounters, she went for a prayer meeting. She was told that the child coming is coming to do something great in the father's life. So when she told me about this word that came to her, I was like, oh boy, yeah. That seriously my creative mind. I was like, that's even more funny because that was what I felt in my head that something great like maybe a promotion or a thing. So it went on like that. So November 12th, my uncle was conceived. That morning I took her to clinic, and for like 2 hours she called me herself. I was so elated. I was like, God, you are, and for me it was yes. The young lad that will carry the name after me, is around, and I'm so happy. It went on like that. His naming, we named him, and things were looking very okay. So, I didn't know much of what was happening, but I just knew I was just basically living my life the way it pleased me. Yeah. August 9th, 2011, I was in Warri, Nigeria for a course, not knowing that things were going on at home, and I didn't know. Funny enough, I was there after the course. I was out with friends doing some ungodly nonsense, and in the evening, around they called me and said something happened that I should not panic, but Tomiwa fell from a 3-story building.
Whoa!
So I had gone to Warri for a course. I had gone to work, and it was holiday period.
Oh.
So we had an house help that stayed with the kids at home. We're still on the 3rd floor of the building, right? So the house help was indoors with them, and Fabiola had friends downstairs that she normally plays with, some little kids too. So apparently she was hearing their voices downstairs. They had locked the main gate to our flat. So she took a small table, climbed up the balcony, and she toppled.
Oh.
I was like, and I was very worried. We used to tablets, right? So at that point I was helpless. I was like, the course had ended. And that was the first day of the course because that August 9th was actually, I think, a Monday or a Tuesday. So the next day, I didn't wait because normally we travel by plane. I was not ready for the plane. The next morning jumped on the bus back home to Port Harcourt, and she told me everything is okay, that thankfully she will not halt, but they rushed her to the emergency room at work. So I got home that day on a Tuesday afternoon, straight up went to the shell clinic because that's the clinic we used then. And I saw my little girl from a while. ECG, but she was okay, funny enough. I'm like, God, say 3-story buildings, and that was the first sign. So funny enough, it was in hindsight I realized that God was actually using this situations like a ringing bell, a sounding bell.
Yeah.
But I was just, nothing happened to her. So good. They took all her bones, did everything. She was perfect. Life continued.
I mean, if I can just come in a little bit from there, sir.
Yeah.
It's the same Tomiwa that I know right now.
It's a more, the 16-year-old baby.
I mean, it's unimaginable.
Yeah.
It's unimaginable.
Yeah.
And it still goes to show the character of God in a way. Many of us will think, oh, it's because I serve Him. It's because I know how to pray, or it's because of my activities in church, activities in the kingdom, and all of that. But God is God. No matter who a man is, right? God is God. To think that this was at the point when you said you to quote you said you were living life the way it pleased you.
Yeah.
Yet God was minding your business.
Absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely. I was telling around this some days ago that working with God is not quid pro quo, right?
Yeah.
We're everything we are because of His mercy.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And I tire out when people sound when they come across me and saying, "Oh, the Lord blessed me because I did this." It gets me pissed off at times because it denigrates the mercy of the Lord.
Absolutely.
Right. And I know because everything I am today is not because I am fervent or I'm prayerful or I give this or that to the Lord. It's because it has pleased the Lord to bless me.
Absolutely.
I constantly remind myself of that truth. And the world right now always thinks it's quid pro quo. Because I do this, the Lord will do that. And it's, in a sense, you will have scriptural backings misconstrued to show you that is the way the Lord operates. But no, it does not. It out of His abundance of mercy that is showing us His favor. So let me go back to the story.
Okay.
So that was August 9th. Life went on and I was still doing my thing because nothing happened. Everything was still okay.
Yeah.
So my first birthday, November 2011, proud father, the son and daughter, in everywhere I was going. Because at that point in time, some of my friends then had gotten 2 kids. I was like, what do you have? A girl or a boy? So it was the ink among the boys then. So I felt I was in an okay place. I have a daughter, I have a son.
Yeah.
No controversy anymore, So sometimes in February 24th, 2012, my one was.
You really have your way with numbers.
Yeah, I remember because these are date cards. In fact, it was surprised that today, October 3rd, marks 24 years and you're day. That was the day I asked her out. 2000. So I said happy date anniversary because I asked her that day in 2000. So 24 years today was when I this years to meet my girlfriend.
Wow.
So I have a witness to remember numbers and thanks be to God for that.
Yeah.
So February 24th, 2012, my uncle normally goes to a crèche very close to the house. The boy will go to school, then after school, she would drop her kindergarten walks, and I was, I think I was on time that day. I was on time, I was at home. So I went to pick the young lad at his sister in the daycare, and I was told that, he had an infection in his hand, that he has a swollen hand, and I was like, okay, no problem. Tomorrow I'll take him to the clinic and you'll get checked out. So that was 23rd of February, because I remember 24th was the day I took him to the clinic. And told me that was the day, so to speak, my world was shattered. Because I took the young boy to the clinic to just get him checked for his swollen finger.
Yeah.
And I was told my son had a genetic disorder.
How?
I was like, they said my son has sickle cell anemia.
Wow.
And I was like, no, that can't be.
Wow.
That can be because backtrack 12 years before that time when I met Aramide. Aramide was so clear about genotypes. Why? Because our eldest brother had sickle cell and along the line died when he was quite young.
Yeah.
Which was like, let's get this, I like you like me, but don't push this thing far unless we know our genotypes.
Exactly.
And funny enough, I think I did some tests when I was young, and I assumed I was AA. So that was an assumption.
Yeah.
But I remember when I was doing my pre-employment medicals to join the company I used to work for, I did the same test, and the medical practitioner that was attending to me showed that said I was AA. So I was like, oh, thank God. Andy is AS, we know she's AS.
Yeah.
I'm AA, so
Yeah.
no issues.
Exactly.
So when this issue came up, I was devastated. I was like,
Wow.
what's this? I brought the boy in for just check his finger, his swollen, and normally they would do blood work and found out that this can't be, because I know my genotype. So I was immediately, I was in the training, and Rush was doing one of our icon trainings then, and I called and I was like, they said my please SS. Wow, sickle cell anemia. And you and I know that this has no cure.
Yeah.
So it broke me.
Wow.
24th February 2012, my life was on a standstill. So immediately that happened, they said, oh, Mr. Ogunleye, we're going to run a blood work on you just to confirm. Because I was arguing, I said no, because I did my medicals in this same hospital and I was told I'm AA. So what is the problem? So long and short, I was taken to the lab, blood drawn from me, again from the young boy. At that point in time, I was waiting for the results. I remember I called my mom, I called my sister in Ireland. She was like, Bolaji, God is in control. And I remember I walked down out of it because I was lost. Life just went bleak all of a sudden to me. And I walked out of the company premises, and I remember I saw a Catholic church close by. And I went straight to that church, knelt down to the altar, and I cried like a baby. Wow. I cried and I told the Lord, God, please. At that point in time, I knew there was nothing I could do. There was nothing I could do to save my boy, because the way it came across me was like, he's going to die tomorrow. This is something that has no cure, So I went to that church. I didn't even care it was a cardio. I knew it was somewhere I could just be alone and commune with God.
Yeah. So
I knelt at the altar there and I cried, told him like a baby, God, please come through for me. Do this, Lord. I will serve you. I was bargaining again with God. The way I bargained, I had him. I was like, God, did you do this? I was just crying. I cried. I remember that day. It was so tough because this was the list of news I was expecting about my child.
Yeah.
And you see the young man, so lanky, so that when he was young, I used to be like a ball or something like that, So went back to get the worst news in my life. When I went back to the clinic, like, confirmed your AS. You had this AS, so the boy. So that was a very seminal point in my life.
Wow.
That was the day that I knew my life would change. Because I remember that if it wasn't for that occurrence, I can tell you that I won't be the man I am today. I know that. The Lord didn't cause it, but I know the Lord used it to bring me back. A lot of things happened in between, right, which I'm going to expound on, but that day I remember was a seminal day in my life. Yeah. I knew that, Bolaji, your life will remain the same, because right from that day, I lived in fear of my son dying. And this is my only son. You get so. I was always contending in the area of prayer. I lost weight. People were like, you didn't know what's going on, because it was sort of a stigma thing. That's so, but they just saw that I had changed. My physical outlook had changed. I lost weight considerably. In the space of 2 weeks, I lost like 10-15 kg. Wow. I used to be a lot bigger than this even then, because, like I said, there was money I was just giving. I would go out, I would eat. I was living so unhealthy, and so I was living in constant fear that this young man won't make it. Yeah. Along the line, I was still next to God. I said, God, if you just do this, my life, it will remain the same. I promise you. I was. So right from there, I kept on searching for answers. God, initially I was asking God why. That would be what do you mean?
The initial response.
Yeah.
People, the initial reaction.
Yes. Why is happening to me? You know, later on in my life, I realized that. Why was I even asking why me? Should it be someone else? You know, I was like, am I even wishing back to someone else because this is bad enough, right? You know, so along that time, I got more involved in God because I was bargaining. So that was the initial step.
Yeah.
I was saying, God, see me, I'll be a good boy. Would take care of my boy. You know, I would pray. I became so committed to the faith. You know, I would every night I would wake up at the midnight, pray for hours, crying, begging the Lord, and at the same time go and look at the boy. He's still breathing. You know, so I was so watchful about the boy that to the point that the fear I lived in was so tormenting. I would want to go to work and I'll be scared that maybe at work before I get back home after 2 weeks, I would have gotten the bad news. You know, but I kept on trusting God because at that point in time I knew that it was only the God that was saving the situation. I knew that. So the best thing was for me was just throw it in the Lord's hands. Just lay your worries and your cares to the Lord. So I kept at it. Then I began reading the Bible. I began studying. As in, this was serious study. I was done as if I was in seminary school because I was searching God. Just reveal yourself to me through your word because I know once I get that which you are speaking to me about, this will be okay. You know, year one left, my was still growing. You know, I remember a day we went for his regular clinical checks, and the doctor there, Dr. Zubo, she said, your son, you know, there are ways how practitioners will tell you some things that will maybe alleviate your fear, and some will say in such a way that they'll kill you.
Magnify it.
Yeah, they'll as in practically kill you. The woman said, this boy will be on a ship for life. That it's not. She first realized that I was like, you know, it's nothing, but it's not. People have it. He will live it for life. He will take it for life. You know, as she was saying it, in my mind, I was refuting it. I was like, so under my breath, not to come across rude to her.
Yeah.
You know, like, just saying under my breath, to my son. And I remember that day they gave us lots of medications for him to be using. He was just almost 2 years old. He was 1 year plus. So I remember that day we got home, not knowing that what I was thinking in my head was what I really was thinking at the same time, that our son would not be on medication for life. So that day we got home, and both of us so tearful and crying. We emptied the bottle of drugs into the water system. We're saying, God, we want to trust you, God. You know, it was quite, for me, I was like, are you normal, Bolaji? They gave you something for your son, you're like, you're trusting God. And I say this not to come across as see we are powerful, but it was just a journey. It was a time in our life we just said, God, we're going to trust you through and through. Right? So that day we were doing that, we were pouring the medicine down the water system, and we're both crying, and we're praying for the boy. God, our son, please, just have mercy. So from that time, I've never used any medication till when it was living normally. So we moved from Port Harcourt, we built our home in Lagos, so we moved down to Lagos. We're there, and even at that point in time, I was still so to speak, living in fear and also denial that maybe it's not true. You know, there are times when they will secretly take the boy for a medical check. We have reports from the lab, you know, of his blood work, SS. You know, she was like, I'm going to keep all this to the time when his genotype changes, I will testify the Lord. But you know, the Lord will go and feel that he's going to be pricked again, and every time he goes there, he's being pricked. You know, so we moved down to Lagos, and I was still in fear. So much fear that this boy will not make it. So I remember when I was almost 5 years old, that was in 2015, right? It was just a day before Toma's birthday, April 15, 2015. and my wife had a very terrible crisis. Terrible crisis. I was at work, and they had to take the two. They had to take Tomiwa and then they see the youngest at that point in time, and that story was even another story. You know, they had to take both of them to grandma, because grandma stays very close to us. And in the middle of the night, we drove my house to the clinic. It was terrible, crying for, occlusions, back pain, and things like that. And I was like, God, why did I bring this upon my son? Because I felt that guilt.
Yeah.
Because my wife knew that it was a mistake, not my own error, but one person that gave me a wrong result.
Yeah.
Someone said, go and sue them, but I said, I'm going to leave this to the Lord because I don't have time for all this. Then just leave this for God to take care of. I'll backtrack a little. When we were doing the minor things issue, when we first heard in 2012, I had known that thank God this is not minor thing. This is I'm not having a child anymore. So that was the conclusion. Both of us had no more children. We're done. So this one even having an issue. So somehow, Andy got pregnant. The day she got to me, maybe I cried. I was crying. I was like, God, I'm still dealing with this situation about my son, and another child is coming. How would I know that this one will not have the same issue? And I was like, I cried to me that day. I was crying out, why God? I don't want to have a child.
I mean, this is a news that is supposed to bring you so much joy.
Absolutely. But I was crying. That I don't want, because I'm dealing with something already. Don't compound issues for me. And we had both said as Christians, abortion is not an option.
Absolutely.
So this is my wife dealing with a child with medical condition, and she's also pregnant. And I was still working. I have to go to work 2 weeks, and so we prayed throughout. And I was doing my issue. I was praying that the child in Andy's tummy should just, So God so good she had that you see, and every time, because I was so fearful to go check that genotype. So we did not even check until we moved down to this country. That was when we knew that it was even AA. Wow, good. So my husband had crises. He kept on having crises every 2 months. We rushed to the clinic, and I remember life was terrible. But all along, I kept on trusting God. That God, you will keep this boy. Please, God, keep him. So one day I have that assurance, because all along I was still living in fear, and we pray. At times I will be calm. Most times I'm fearful. So I remember one morning I was at work in the field, and those days I don't sleep. For like 3-4 years I wasn't sleeping well. I was so fearful that I never wanted the night to come. So I preferred the day where work will keep me busy and I'll not think about anything. But once it's night, I'm also fearful of the night. So I remember that when I woke up that morning, I was exasperated to waking up tired.
Yeah.
I was doing my devotion, I was praying, and I know I was in my room at work. There's this corner, there's like that corner. I stood there and I cried. I couldn't pray, I was just crying. Those are the times I cried most of I was just, every day I was crying. And as I was crying, I would read the Bible, I would find solace in God's word, I would go back again, the devil would taunt me and say that boy will die. So that morning I remember I stood at that corner and I was saying, God please, I was praying, I was crying, and I heard a word of my spirits. It wasn't as if it was audible, but it was just a voice so clear in my heart, in my spirit. I was like, God said, I will take care of the boy. That was all I heard. I will take care of the boy. And I was calm. I told my wife, because she was also very fearful anyway, but she was like, this is what it is. Maybe these are a lot in life. But that morning I know I heard in my spirit so clearly, God telling me, I will take care of the boy. So life continued. He will have crises, he will go to the clinic, transfusion, he will come back home, and we're keeping this in the family.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want my son to be stigmatized.
Yeah.
One of the major drivers when we moved down to another country wasn't even my, because I remember in 2014, I was on a cross signing to another location, and I was watching TV. I was into one of Nigeria's, I would like to call him an elite. He's a businessman. He said he moved to the UK years ago because his son had sickle cell. He couldn't trust the health system in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So when he said that, I was captivated. I was like, God, is that what you're telling me? I want to run ahead of myself. But I heard that man say, well, when he said sickle, and that's when I became a doctor because I had researched a lot of things. I knew, in fact, when we moved out to this country, they commended me and I was like, you've done everything in managing sickle cell. I knew everything about it. I was like a consultant. So I heard that man say, I moved to the UK because I couldn't trust Nigeria's healthcare system, blah, 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 blah. And now the boy is 21 years old, he's doing his thing, he's living healthy. That was the first time it took my heart that maybe I would have to move. But I was like, God, I don't want to second guess you. I want you to do what you alone can do. So I kept mum. I didn't make the move. I didn't tell my wife, nothing. But in my heart, I was like, is that the way to go? I tried to just come back and say, Bolaji, leave. I'm like, God is not, I don't think God is the one telling me this. Maybe it's just my emotions running wild. So I was like, fighting that voice again. So on a Thursday, I remember it was actually maybe mid-September, I was at home on time off in a house in Lagos. My point is very dead. He used to be very susceptible to anything smoke. Small smoke, he starts coughing. From that cough, he goes to the clinic, he's transfused. So we shield him away from smoke, from anything. So that day, I was outside my compound. I was doing a prayer walk around the compound, and I looked up, and I saw someone burning grass very close to my house. I was like, it's today. I was just like vexed in my house, like, I can't stay here anymore. So I went into the living room, and they were watching the news channel. I said, Randy, let's leave this country. Just like that. Normally, my wife will say, she will want to argue and say, yeah. Do you know when I said, let's leave this country for the first, out of very few occurrences, and they will not question why you are saying, she just said, let's leave. Just like that, let's leave. I was like, really, let's leave. That was a Thursday. The next day, I began the Canadian thing. He was like, you don't follow you now. I was like, you know me now, once I have a go, it's me, I'm going. All along, we're still dealing with my uncle's crisis, but I was growing in faith.
Yeah.
I was maturing.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, I'd come to the point where I knew that this happened because the Lord wanted to use. The Lord didn't cause it. I tell people the Lord didn't cause it because the Lord not the author of anything bad. Everything good comes from God. The Bible says all good and perfect gifts come from God. All of light. There's the greatness of Shakotonin. So I knew it didn't cause my son's illness. Rather, the Lord is using that situation to bring me close to him. And I drew close to him because I knew it was the one that could solve my problem.
Absolutely.
So I was maturing in the faith. I was, active. I would pray. I would, encourage people. Even though I had things burning me under my shokoto, I would just. So we started the Canada thing, and things went very fast. In fact, among my peers, I got my Canadian thing in 4 months, and
that was really fast.
It was fast because I was thinking it took like a year. Submitted the application. We got our PR visas. Maybe we've been around for over 5 years. My account has not had any issue. And if I didn't tell you this, you look at my account, you even know. Very few of my friends, my inner circle. And why I share this with you is because when I heard your testimony, I was like,
absolutely.
Because initially I wanted to keep it at a high level.
Yeah.
But when I was listening to your testimony, the Lord told me, I want you to be explicit about it. Because it's going to help someone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When I see the young man now, the way he's growing, so cerebral, you know him.
Always, I know him.
And I see his mannerism. One day, because when we told him some years ago about his condition, he cried. He was like, why me? Like, the Lord has a purpose in this. He's thankfully a Christian young man too.
Yeah.
He knows he's in the faith.
Yeah.
If they even came to me and said, Daddy, are you sure I have sickle cell? I don't feel it. It is going, when he goes for his checkup in the clinic, they were like, okay, everything is good, he's going well, and all thanks be to God for that. And I'm still expectant. I tell myself, I said, now I got to a point where I'm no longer negotiating with God. I'm saying, God, your will be done. Because as a Christian, my own health faith is not, like I said, is not quid pro quo, or is not when it's sweet, it's God. I take cues from the life of people like Lazarus, and the rich ruler. He died a poor man. He pleased the Lord that way. Right? Job suffered affliction. We have people in scriptures that we take lessons from. It's not all sweet for the Christian man,
No.
right? There are things we are contending against, we're struggling with. Till tomorrow, I'm still trusting God. That God, if it's your will, you change the boy's genotype. If it's going to be like this,
Put it on
the young man.
Put it on paper.
Yeah. Let the young man, but because he's living a life healthy, serving you, because he knows. And before I even spoke about that, I told my, I said, I'm going for this episode of Victory Stories. Permission to share your story, because he's 14 already, and he's a young man. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to, this for me, this is a story in the family that I'm thankful to the Lord for, because the Lord used it to turn my life around. Because I know that if this thing happened to me, maybe I would have been dead or done something mad. I'm sure the family would have broken apart, because I was on the highway to death.
Yeah.
But the Lord used that situation, though not from Him, to turn me around, and now I'm in the right direction.
Yeah.
Guys were like saying, guys that knew me, they were like, Bolaji, you're okay. Or someone, like, you know me, and I knew I was not right. And I'm part of that, right? But the Lord used this situation to bring me out of that filthiness to a place where today I eschew evil. When I see a young man like myself doing stuff I did, I feel an empathy for them, like, wait, I'm going to shame you. Because I tell, my wife was sharing with me story of a young man, one of our friends back home in Nigeria, that is misbehaving. I said, except the Lord intervened in this guy's life, he doesn't have the power to help himself.
Not at all. Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they know not.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I believe I've come to a place right now. I'm still maturing in God, but I now have a better understanding of why. Because that was my question then. God, why? Why? But now I know why, because it's so evident in my life that this is the why. If it did not happen, you were on the highway to destruction. And I know that. And for that, anytime I sit back and reflect on the last 12, 13 years, I've gone from a place where I was normalizing sin in my life. You know, at the point in my life, I felt when I go out to mess up, I felt, well, that's the way I am. Because I struggled to stop, but I wasn't stopping. I was like, how much is that in here, Jerry?
Yeah.
Yeah. And even this happened, I realized that maybe out of fear, I just didn't want to have anything to do with sin. Because I believe that if I don't sin, the Lord would.
Yeah.
But that's a misconception, because I still have my zeros.
Yeah.
I still fall into some stupid things I do.
Yeah. That was the starting point.
Yes. But today, I can tell you, all thanks to God, He has brought me out of that filthiness to a place where I'm not just finding myself good, but I know I have a relationship with Him, where I know if I do some stupid things, I'm convicted immediately. Hey, young man, don't do that.
Yeah.
Before, in the past, I was deaf.
Exactly. And that's a very dangerous place to be.
Absolutely.
The place where you do something bad and there is no spirit within you saying you've done something wrong.
Absolutely.
That's the highway to destruction.
Absolutely. And that was where I was then. I was getting, I seriously, because I normalized everything, So when things took a different turn, guys that knew me, they were like, at first they were laughing at me. They're like, "Oh, serious? But later on, they now saw that, just saw your Paul where, like, check on your Paul, man. Because at work, I'll go to fellowship, they're like, Bolaji Lord Church. You try calling me Ajay Jehovah. Just call different names to the point that later on, this guy is not really listening to what I have to tell them. They now saw a genuine compassion. But I know it would not be possible if that did not happen. I know, because every time I think about the journey so far, I'm like, I tell my kids when we're having a family round table, they know this story. Because I said this story in the family is quite similar for your father, because when I'm done and gone out of this world and you guys still around, the story should tell your people after me.
I don't know how to begin to react to what you just mentioned, Antoine. Yes, your background could affect your life, but you should not take it as an excuse to misbehave.
Absolutely.
What do you think? Yeah.
Living together as a family, my father married another wife, and just so you know, my father married our lesson teacher. So my mother employed this woman to teach my two sisters before me home lessons. My father saw another woman, started frolicking with her, got pregnant and married her.